Fat Reimu, 10 out of 10. Everywhere you look, everywhere you Welcome to A Beginner's Guide to Touhou, the now official series where someone who has never played a Touhou game, me, goes through everything to do with it in chronological order and reviews them. Running with the heels of Touhou 1 since they were released the same day we have Touhou 2, the story of the Eastern Wonderland. It's a bullet hell game, the first bullet hell in Touhou history to be specific, which sounds really dumb when you realize that's what Touhou is known for and it just started as a crappy breakout in a game. In case you don't know what a bullet hell is, I'll direct you to the name. The bullet in bullet hell means that there are projectiles, and the hell means that there's a lot of them. But that's enough of the intro already, let's just get to this game's history. Once again, this game was made by Zunsoft, or just Zun since he's the only guy who does this, for the PC-98, the ridiculously pricey computer that couldn't even do real 3D. The game was released alongside Highly Responsive to Prayers in Comic Kit 52, where there, Zun boastfully stated how this game had more bullets than the very popular and very difficult bullet hell franchise, Dodonpachi. I am so sorry for saying that wrong. On a different note, and I know this didn't happen, but I'm imagining a Sega does what Nintendo don't scenario. Something stupid like Touhou does with the Do-Don't or something like that. Like it's a war how much bullets your game can handle. In reality though, even though there are a lot of bullets, the hitboxes are deceivingly small, so the fact that there are more bullets is a design choice more than anything, but we'll get to that. It also turns out that before Comic Kit, Zun was, according to him, already 50% done with Touhou 3, Phantasmagoria of Dim Dream. I don't know why it's called that, nor do I know why he was already done with the third game almost. But what I do know is that this was shaping up to be a full-blown franchise, if it already wasn't. Zun ended up selling about 200 copies of the story of the Eastern Wonderland at the event. What's interesting about this is how it outsold Touhou 1 by 4 times the amount, which arguably could be the tipping point that made Touhou into a bullet hell. However, just like the game before, in the 3 after, they stopped being sold once Embodiment of the Scarlet Devil came out in 2006. Okay, so technically Touhou 2 and Touhou 1 don't have an overarching story according to Zun. That's why it makes perfect sense that it has an overarching story. Sort of. Reimu's house is still destroyed and Mima is still a vengeful spirit, but there's definitely some changes here. First off, there's a new face accompanying Reimu, that being Genji. A turtle that can fly that seems to be somewhere between her servant, her guide, and pet, though his official title according to the wiki is Resident Turtle with his occupation being a pet. He really got screwed over hard. But this isn't any turtle. It's a turtle that can fly. And since Reimu can't fly, I'll let you figure out what happens next. But he's also a yokai, or a ghost in more simplified terms for simpletons, which was caused by the fact that he is just that old. Basically, animals can turn into yokai once they get very old. That gives an explanation as to why he can fly, talk, and how he's older than Reimu. This guy is thrown under the bus more times than is probably necessary, mostly by Reimu by calling her Gramps all the time. Though it's funny when he occasionally snaps and calls Reimu stupid. Though I feel as though he's only necessary to explain the things to Reimu and nothing more. His only real impact is telling Reimu where they are in stage 3 and talking in the good ending about the power of Hakuri, which implies that he's known about this power of Hakuri for a while and helped Reimu's ancestors as well. Reimu is fairly unchanged though, being the naive and comical protagonist that she was in Touhou 1. Though I will say that she is a bit dumbed down here. But what can you do? Now there are 2 yin-yang orbs, unlike last time, but they're still the shrine's biggest treasure, and aren't just some random monster. So that just says that most of Touhou 1 happened, but the ending didn't. The story goes as followed before the game even starts. In the mountains of the eastern part of Nowhere Middle of, there's a shrine with Reimu Hakuri, the shrine maiden who's trying to make herself more powerful every day. One day though, she comes to find that there are ghosts everywhere, and Genji senses an evil power lurking. They go off into the shrine to investigate what happened. The first stage then starts, and after destroying a mini-tank, Reimu then meets a lady called Rika at the front door of the shrine, a human who summoned the ghosts. Somehow, I don't know, they never said why. Reimu then says that Rika's gonna get a breakdown, and Rika fights her in a newly made flower tank. After getting pummeled, she flees, and Reimu says, and I don't quote because she didn't say this at all, "I won't chase you," since she could be just leading them into a trap. This is important, so remember it forever. Or don't, since I'm just gonna remind you. Welcome to Stage 2, Midnight Rainstorm. A crazy, noisy, bizarre rainstorm to be specific. Okay, I've gotten through the part 4 OPs, I'll shut up now. There's no backstory to this place, so I'm just gonna assume that's just a forest. And after getting to a small clearing at the end of the forest, Reimu smells something bad and Kangara appears. Wait, no, this isn't Kangara from Touhou 1. Apparently, despite the obvious similarities, but rather Meira appears, a human samurai, saying that she'll take the power of Akuri. If we count Reimu, this means that we have 3 characters that look extremely similar to one another now. And this is only the second game. Good job. But Reimu misinterprets this as Meira wanting her, to which she shoots her shot, absolutely misses, makes an old reference and beats up Meira. That could have gone a whole lot better. She was going to bury Meira, but Meira ran away, so whatever. But now we know that Rika probably also wanted this power of Akuri, if she's anything like Meira. Welcome to Stage 3, Dream World. Genji explains that Dream World is between Normal World and Demon World, probably like Makai and Touhou 1, but who even knows at this point. Genji also explains that's the fastest route to where he suspects all these goons are coming from. They then fight the 5 magic stones, which have a severe case of Touhou 1 syndrome, where they have no backstory or reason to exist. That's also not the only way that they're similar to Touhou 1 bosses. Reimu then kills them, makes some funny noises, because she was afraid, I guess. Genji tells her never to make those noises again. I laugh. Stage 4 Makai. Probably, I don't know, it never really specifies. But at the end of this stage, they meet... drumroll please. Mima! Oh wait, you don't remember who's Mima? Well, Mima was the Stage 3 Hell Route boss that was also a vengeful spirit who got sealed away in Hell by Reimu. And she's back! Why was Mima the only other character that survived the Touhou 1 con bomb? It's a plot hole in and of itself. Reimu accuses her of being the one who broke the Hakure Shrine, which, by the way, it wasn't. It was all Kangara. And Mima responds that she doesn't care enough to do that when she's got a humanity to destroy for some unexplained reason. Reimu then tells Mima that she'll seal her again, but Mima does the amazing thing and flees and leaves behind, drumroll please, again, Marisa Kirasame, now with red hair. Marisa is a human magician who is apparently a minion for Mima, which makes no sense since Mima wants to kill all humans, but sure. From now on, Marisa will be important and appear in basically every Touhou game, so get used to her. Anyway, Reimu pummels her. This is the part of the game where it splits into 2 paths, the good and bad endings. If you press continue after dying, Marisa will make a remark about how you aren't strong enough to fight Mima, and then break the 4th wall by saying that you've continued the amount of times you press continue. If she didn't though, then she shuts up and gets out of here. Welcome to Stage 5, Makai, but deeper I guess. Mima appears to defeat Reimu, and if you press continue, she'll notice that how the yin-yang orbs can only be used by a blood member of Hakuri, and she somehow knows that, but Reimu doesn't. Whatever. Mima then says that she won't kill Reimu, but keep her alive just for the yin-yang orbs, and say how Reimu isn't strong enough. Genji actually agrees to her that they should have trained more, and Reimu fights Mima anyway because Genji is just a stinky old man turtle. Mima then flees midway through the battle, saying how she might accidentally kill Reimu if they keep fighting. Enter bad endings 1, 2, and 3, which depend on whether you're playing Reimu types movement, defense, or aggressive in that order. Yeah, I'll talk about it more later. Anyway, in the bad endings, Reimu was wondering what happened to Mima, and wishing she trained more when Marisa appears above her, telling that she'll help change her attitude with training. Reimu wonders why she's helping, since, you know, Marisa was literally trying to kill her a couple days ago, and Marisa says that she was just bored. So like an absolute idiot, Reimu believes her, and then depending on which playstyle you actually played, Marisa either flies Reimu to the moon, because I guess she was just listening to Frank Sinatra that day, puts her in a waterfall of glue, at least that's what I hope it is, it's never said, or makes her into a Salem-style steak by a witch. Reimu, you had one job. Going back to the final fight, this time on the good endings, Mima says how she's after the power of the orbs, and how Reimu truly is a member of the Hakuri. After going through the full fight, Mima stands defeated, revives herself, and then gets punched down again, successfully sealing her and storing the 3 good endings. They all start the same, with Mima getting out of the seal in the back of the shrine, and by Reimu exclaiming how she'll have to chase her again. And by Reimu then asking Genji what the true power of the yin-yang orbs are, since, you know, everybody was literally dying for them. He responds that, depending on the ending, it's the ability to eat as many sweets as you want with absolutely no consequence, the ability to have a pleasant smell come out of the yin-yang orb, or getting a really cute cat that basically just cares for itself and doesn't have any mood swings. Now obviously all of which are fairly niche and obscure powers, which really makes you question why everybody was just fighting to the death for a really cute cat. So I just explained to you the Touhou 2 story, so I hope your life has been fulfilled. But what if I played the extra stage? That's right, beating the game on all 3 good endings allows you to choose a little option on the main menu, giving you this special stage. It's just the one stage, and for a very good reason, because apparently it's hard as balls. I wouldn't know, I'm not playing or unlocking it. But this extra stage is an alternate universe, where back in stage 1, if Reimu followed Rika, she would have gotten trapped by her new eye tank called the Evil Eye Sigma, which apparently Rika is a tank engineer. Which, by the way, flies. Rika, you could be doing way more productive things other than getting the ability to eat crap tons of sweets and not get diabetes. Never mind, this is justified. This extra stage has no correlation to the normal game, but sorta not supposed to, especially since it's mostly just supposed to be a really, really hard stage and not much more. Okay, so, let's recap. Everybody wants a really good cat, and they can and will fight to the death to get it. Okay, to be fair, they probably didn't know that the power of Hakuri was just a really mundane power. But why do so many people know about this power, but not know what it does? This seems like a thing that could be easily resolved by just making it public knowledge. It's not like this thing can nuke the world. Okay, it can't nuke the world in this timeline. But then again, this story was clearly meant to be taken lightly. The entire thing is just meant to be a joke leading towards a good ending, so I'm not going to criticize a game for doing the thing that it wanted to do right and complain that it isn't a completely different kind of story. At least it makes more sense than HRTP's story, so it's an improvement. By the way, while I did just say that the story did what it wanted, its connection to Touhou 1 is very confusing and inconsistent at its best. For example, there are 2 yin-yang bowls now, cool, but where the hell was the second one before? Now you could just chalk this up to it being a only Touhou 1 thing, but hear me out. Mima was sealed in hell in HRTP, but here she was sealed behind the shrine. That seems like either A, deliberate reference to Touhou 1, or B, it's 100% a continuation of Touhou 1 that just got a little bit retconned. Speaking of which, the shrine was destroyed by Mima in this game, but in Touhou 1, Kangara destroyed it. And even though Reimu straight up accuses Mima of doing it, and even though she denies it, means that Reimu in Touhou 1 thought she got rid of the shrine destroyer, but still went on with blowing up hell like she's Doom Guy and ended up killing Kangara anyway. Moving along with the inconsistencies, according to the canon ending of 1, the shrine got destroyed again by the power of the yin-yang orb, a dumb creature. But in this game, the power of Hakuri is something completely different. Maybe the power of Hakuri and the power of the yin-yang orb are something different, but I seriously doubt it. There are so many small details in this game, and they make no sense. Why say that this game has no connection with the first game, when there's so many connections that even your dementia-ridden McDonald's soda dispenser could figure them out? Either add references that make sense, or don't include references at all. A game I hold very near and dear to my heart, Kid Icarus Uprising, yeah, you're probably sick of hearing of this, does the same thing, where Pit is wearing the silver armor from the game Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters, But the problem is, in that game, the ending sees Pit have his wings burn off, which is canonically the only thing that could kill him, according to Scorched Feathers. And that game is technically canon too, but in the most convoluted way imaginable. Continuity has been dead for the last 24 years, and at this point I'm fairly sure it was killed. Even with all that, I have to say this game hates telling you the locations you're in and where everything is. The mid-bosses, for example, are never touched upon, with the exception of the mini-tank, of course. And that's kind of strange considering you want to build a world, but at the moment you're shooting down any possibility of world building. Reimu turned out to be the exact character I expected. Kinda dumb, loudmouthed, but unlike that entire anime protagonist archetype, really likes to mess with people. In almost every dialogue scene you can see her just taking absolutely nothing seriously, and taking pot shots at anybody who'll pop their head out to talk. Even Genji, which, by the way, is completely undeserved for reasons I've already explained, also stan Genji. This even happens after Mima explains that she'll kill all of humanity. I just love this energy. On the other characters though, Rika is sort of a typical first boss character. Thinks they're all that and really aren't. Kinda like the False Knight. Though this time she comes back and still has that attitude. Now it's warranted. Meira has one character trait, and that's rejecting Reimu. She's a fairly generic character, being all serious and stoic, but seeing her be confused by Reimu's personality is fun to watch since Meira is so overly serious. Skipping the magic stones, we have Marisa, who brings that whole messing with people thing and brings it to 1000%, to the point where she just breaks the fourth wall. She's sort of like an evil Reimu, very similar but also a jerk in a lot of ways. Her motives are very strange, however, since up until this point, everyone who's wanted to take down Reimu themselves have just wanted the power of a curry. But Reimu is just a minion of Mima, a character who just wants to kill all of humanity, while Marisa is also a human, which would make somebody an absolute imbecile. Fun character, but questionable motives unless she just wants to watch the world burn. Mima has almost as questionable motives, but not as much since Mima is a spirit. She doesn't have to deal with the consequences of her actions, and she's probably gonna get found out that she's out of hell anyway soon, so screw it, I guess. I'm gonna go kill humanity. And I like it affects me. Also, I want to go kill Reimu for vengeance or whatever. I say that these characters are very okay for what they are, but in reality it feels like you're giving characterization to the bosses in Mario Galaxy. Like, yeah, they have cool designs and all, but why try when you aren't gonna go all the way? But to be honest, I've talked about the story for way too long now. So let's get to the... Okay, this soundtrack is amazing. It's like, once we got to the Bullet Hell Touhou games, the music just decided to be good. Like, just listen to this. It gives me goosebumps every time. And that doesn't just go for Mima's battle theme, it goes for the entire soundtrack. For example, Marisa's theme, Love Colored Magic with a U, is amazing as well. The Stage 4 theme even has leitmotifs of Femboy Sephiroth's theme and Magic Mirror in Touhou 1, which I will hold back on saying anything bad about those songs, because when I first heard them, it was just like, hey, that's the thing from the last game, I know this. And that will never not be the coolest feeling in a video game. This soundtrack fits so well with every stage and every boss encounter that there isn't a single song you can point to and say, that sucks. Battle and Death maybe, but there's a reason it's like that, since the third boss is when the game basically just steps up in difficulty, and the music is basically telling you to focus. Every song is so good, and each one deserves a very good listen. I have to say, I had low expectations after Highly Responsive to Prayers, since I liked about 4 songs in that soundtrack, and I was expecting this OST and the rest of the PC98's era songs to blow, but I was pleasantly surprised. As someone who got into the series because of the soundtrack, I'm happy to see how the series started off relatively strong in this aspect, and hopefully I'll be able to hear some more songs like this as we continue throughout the series. It looks better than Touhou 1. I guess I should elaborate. So first off, I know what I'm looking at a good chunk of the time. For example, I know that I am in fact a Reimu while riding a turtle, the sprite work is doing its job now, and my standards are freaking plummeted. You can tell what everything in this game is supposed to be, though, I will say, it's kind of strange how small the hitbox of Reimu is when the sprite is so big. Apparently the hitbox is located in the middle of her bell. Here's a comparison, Zun, you lying snake. I don't have a problem with hitboxes being smaller than they look most of the time, but this is so off that it makes me wonder why Reimu doesn't just look smaller, because there are times where I skim a bullet and wonder how I just didn't die. But hey, it makes me feel cool, so who cares? The colors of this game are nice and vivid, except for the bullets, but we'll get there. Enemies are visible, Reimu can be easily seen, and the backgrounds are colorful. Maybe just a bit too colorful, but at least the visual effects aren't too distracting, except for the bomb. Fun fact, the bomb in this game has the same effect to people with epilepsy as the enemies in the game. Death. Okay, I can't lay off talking about this for too much longer, but some of these stages have bullets that are just hard to see since the backgrounds kind of blend in the bullets. This is mostly a problem with stages like 2 where the power-ups and bullets and enemies are just everywhere, and it'd be sort of important to know where they are so I don't throw my monitor out the window. A good example of a stage that does this right is the Stones boss fight, where there are multicolored bullets to help you know where they are. Issue is that the background kind of negates this since it's freaking rainbows everywhere, but at least I tried. As much as I like stage 2, it doesn't help how lightning appears every couple of seconds to just throw you off. But it isn't too bad since you get used to it. I just wish that it wasn't like this to begin with. Now, one thing I don't like about the game is the cutscenes being static images and not, cutscenes like in Touhou 1. Well, that's one point that Touhou 2 isn't getting back. However, the endings make more sense in this game, so I'm gonna have to retract to that point from Touhou 1. I don't know, man, these cutscenes just don't have as much charm like they do in Touhou 1. They still have the funny dialogue, but it just isn't as unique. The only images that change for both good and bad endings are the last images. However, the ability to know that trees canonically exist in Touhou is a big plus. Imagine not being Touhou 1. According to the Constitution, turns out you get the right to happiness. Yeah, this game is a hell of a lot more fun than Touhou 1 due to the fact that it is not, in fact, Touhou 1. In terms of gameplay similarities, you have 4 difficulties, there's still a point system that gives you lives, you still have to dodge projectiles, and if you could die, you get bombs which damage enemies and make you invincible. Otherwise though, this is the easiest game to spot the difference. This is a full-blown and arguably no bullcrap bullet hell, otherwise known as one of the hardest genres of games, up there with shooters and rhythm games. Shooters, since who doesn't complain about not being able to aim in rhythm games just because, look at this. Bullet hells are hard since you have to focus on dodging attacks in an open area. There's no cover, no way to stop the barrage of bullets, it's just you and the bullets, mano v mano. Which is why bullet hell devs collectively decided to make you dodge a wall without dying somehow. The gameplay at its core is simple but technically functional. Design is 1 to 2K, but it really has no design problems. Oh, we'll talk about it. You don't think that you're safe. But otherwise, your gameplay loop is stage, get points and power-ups, fight a mini-boss, get through the rest of the stage, text, and boss. This is the most video gamey game there ever was. Where have you been for the last 40 Wait, it's been 40 years? Touhou 2 has very simple controls. Arrow keys to move, Z to shoot, and X to bomb. For whatever reason, mashing the shoot button makes you shoot faster, so to Splatoon Brush players, I have a game for you. But seriously, I only use this during boss fights, I don't want to get carpal tunnel. Hit left and right at the same time and Reimu gets that short-term amnesia that hits when you enter a room. I won't say that the game's controls are bad, but I will say that Reimu sort of feels a bit strange to control. Can't really explain it though. On a different note though, shooting in this game actually kills enemies. What a concept. You usually start out with your normal P shot, but get enough P power-ups or S power-ups, which are basically the same thing, but you level up more, and you give the big middle finger to evolution. How these shots upgrade depend on which playstyle you chose, but we'll get back to that. The power-ups that drop from enemies though also include the purple power-up score, which gives you an indeterminate amount of points, which probably has a way to calculate how many points you get from it, but I'm too lazy to look it up. Power-ups which give you hella points and a bomb, which is extremely rare. And the elusive 1-up, which gives you a life, but only drops like 2 times in the Mima fight. What a nice final boss. The game is divided into 5 stages, plus an extra stage, all of which increase in difficulty. Almost. No, I'm not going to talk about the extra stage, since I didn't get there and it's way too hard. So we'll just talk about the normal 5 stages. Now, you aren't really dying from these stages 9 times out of 10, unless it's the last real stage. You also aren't dying to mini-bosses, because the real attraction here is the boss fights. We'll get to those later, because we have to introduce our play styles. Mobility, defensive, and offensive, and only one of those names are actually right. Okay, technically in the Japanese version, they're called Reimu types A, B, and C respectively. This is probably just the problem with the English patch, but I don't know. The mobility playstyle makes you extremely fast, probably a little bit too fast, but it's also the lowest in terms of damage output during bosses. To balance this out, it also excels in crowd control, dodging, and collecting power-ups. However, on the opposite side, we have the offensive style, which excels in single target damage. Like a lot. This thing can shred through mini-bosses like cats in wood chip. It's like, just look at how fast the first mini-boss goes down. Here's the thing though, it's really slow and it lacks crowd control capabilities, which makes it really hard to power up at this thing in the first place. And then there's the defensive type. It has decent speed, good damage, and a good spread of bullets due to its max power having homing missiles. Its biggest weakness is trying to be bad. This thing would do great in a job interview. Seriously though, why would you not use defensive type when it's just so good and has absolutely no weaknesses? I actually used to think that aggressive was the worst playstyle, but then I realized that it was good for the extra stage since, it kills the boss really quickly. So then I thought that defense was the worst. But then I found out that was actually the overall best, and then finally decided that movement stinks. It's only good during the stages where you don't already die, and otherwise you're just gimping yourself, since A, you don't deal that much damage, and B, bosses were designed with aggressive still being able to play the game. So you being faster just makes it slightly harder to dodge attacks, since you're just moving at the speed of light for attacks that don't even need to be dodged with something that fast. So basically, just use defense normally, and use aggressive if you're trying to become a masochist. Unless you're trying to beat the game 3 times for the extra stage, but I kind of think that just goes into the masochist category. But I guess I should finally talk about this mess. The continue system. Now hear me out. I don't think this is inherently bad. An optional system for those who lose all their lives to try again at the cost of a bit of content, that's fine. What I'm not okay with though is the fact that you only get 3 continues, and said continues just put you back to where you were when you died. So if the boss is at half health and you continue, they will stay at half health. And after those continues are gone, it's just back to the beginning now. Now, I mentioned in the first video how it's important to design boss-heavy games around the bosses you see. Do you think this would be a lot more obvious? More specifically, it's good to be able to redo bosses quickly, so that way you have a lot of time to memorize their attacks, and so that way you can actually kill them. Let's look at Cuphead as an example. That game allows you to fail as many times as you want, as long as you eventually kill the boss the whole way through without dying. Now, if you chose Simple in Cuphead, which is basically just Touhou 2's equivalent to a continue system, you can't beat the game. Simple is just a practice difficulty to get you to know what you're actually getting into. Hell, even Touhou 1 did this right. It started you in the beginning of a boss if you continued. The only problem that game had was that the bosses were so BS, it just felt like no matter what, you'd have to continue since everything was a dice roll. Actually, no, there was about 1,000 problems with that game. But Touhou 1 kicks out most of the garbage, so why in God's name do they have this new system? It's like an arcade game when the game wasn't even released for arcades. Worst part though, about starting back at the beginning of this game, it just takes a while to complete. It's not like you can speedrun your way through this game, it's a side-scroller, so the option to continue at the beginning of a stage or a boss at infinite amount of times for practice before you go through the whole game without it is such an obvious design choice. But no, I guess since the bosses are sort of fair and the game isn't very long, this continue system was chosen. Doesn't make it a good choice though. Okay, that's enough time wasted. Let's get to the behemoth, the bosses. Bosses appear at the end of each stage, and their only goal is to make the video game hard as all hell. There are 5 bosses in the base game, and they all have a lot of health and a lot of bullets. Usually obscene amounts of bullets, like, seriously, these guys do not let up. Starting with Rika, she is probably the easiest bullet hell boss in the world. I beat her on my first time playing. The bullets she shoots are slow, predictable, and are very spread out, so dodging both around and between them isn't very difficult even for a newcomer. However, this boss does have a large spread for her attacks, which teaches a very important lesson of moving between bullets and not around. It's a concept and skill that separates the men from the idiots. The only exception to this is the final phase, where she just kind of spams bullets everywhere, which isn't really hard to dodge since they have no sense of direction, and they all come from the same place, so as long as you see a direct path from you to Rika, you probably won't die. Also, for whatever reason, you can get behind Rika in some parts of the fight, and she can't do anything about it. This isn't too helpful, though, since the boss is already extremely easy. Mayra is next, and okay, this boss is when things actually get hard. Her attacks are faster and more sporadic between her attack cycles. Her hitbox is also smaller, so killing her is a bit more of a hassle, especially when she's moving around at the speed of light, throwing around bullets like there's no tomorrow. But this boss also teaches a very important lesson of how to kite bullets. Kiting, for those unfamiliar, is a term used to describe taking something that homes onto you, outrunning it, and then attacking it outside of its range. It's why snipers in video games are so slow. It's so that way the enemy team can run up to you and kill the sniper, without the risk of the sniper running away and shooting you from somewhere else. Kiting bullets is the same concept, but with the idea that since you can't hurt the bullets, and since those bullets only attack to where you were when they spawned, it makes it so that way moving in such a way that you dodge it becomes pretty easy. It's an idea used in multiple bullet hell games, and Mayra teaches it in a way where if you don't do it properly, you die. But if you do it properly, then there's a 100% chance that you survive. I love how that was done. There are some easy bits in the fight though, being how all of her attacks have a very obvious indicator before they happen. Also, her final phase sees you dodging balls. There's a joke in there to be made about Mayra and this attack and her hard rejecting Ramu, but to be honest, I think it's kind of funny if I just let all those things sink in. Anyway, this attack is easy enough, with the slight caveat that the balls might disappear and Mayra might just throw another one out of nowhere with no sign that it might happen. But the balls are slow and predictable, so whatever. Overall though, this boss has amazing design, definitely the best boss in the game. Next is the 5 magic stones. I meant 1 magic stone. Yeah, the first 2 phases are really easy, and all you have to do is get rid of 1 stone, and that phase is now twice as easy, even though it was already Rika levels of difficulty. The first phase has you open quote kiting end quote the first bullets, and then having to move between a barrage of bullets for the second shots. You see, I put kiting in quotations since it's only 1 stream of bullets, and there really is nothing to dodge if you're just moving around like a normal person. In the second barrage, fun fact, can be stopped by just shooting one of the guys before the second attack is over. Yeah, the stones have that little health in a stage where you probably already have max power. Huh. Oh, and the game reinforces that by giving you S power-ups and a bomb for killing the first 4 stones. Either way, the second phase brings both the dodging between bullets of Rika and kiting of Mayra and combines them, which would be a really good concept if it was actually put on a hard boss. By the way, this is the only attack. They just spam it out, which makes it really hard to pick up power-ups when the bullets are blocking them. However, the final stone, oh, that's a fight. Not a good one though. Okay, so the large majority of attacks are fine. They reward you for dodging between bullets and remembering attacks. That's good, since these attacks are very intimidating when you first run through. I actually think that 90% of the time this boss is the most fun to fight. However, do you remember those bombs they gave you in the first 2 phases? Well, I hope you still have them, since they're about to teach you a really good lesson about bad game design. Suicide bullets. Suicide bullets, for those who don't know, are bullets that are impossible to predict or are impossible to dodge, which basically just soft locks you out of a life. This boss has just one instance of it, and the only way to survive it is by using a bomb. Now, I don't feel like I have to explain why suicide bullets are a textbook example of bad game design, but if you didn't already get the picture, this attack basically ensures that you die 100% of the time through no fault of your own in a game that's supposed to be very skill-based. Why does this exist? What was going through Zun's head? Which sucks too, because this boss could be perfect if this move was at least modified. Also, you can't get behind the stones like you can with Rika. 0 out of 10, literally unplayable. Next is Marisa, which I will give credit where it's due. This boss has a very interesting mechanic of spinning circles attacking you, but also the mechanic of the spinning circles being attacked so that way you can actually shoot Marisa. However, when this happens, you have no idea what variation of the move will actually happen, since all the movements of them kind of blend together. It doesn't help how you have no idea when the attack will start reversing, since the orbs are moving so fast that it doesn't really make a difference until it's too late. Also, because of the orbs being the main thing you have to attack, it makes it extremely hard to do much damage, since you're only sometimes able to attack just one orb of the 4 when you're actually shooting, making this boss extremely long, and it's why defense is the best play style. However, Marisa introduces a new thing for you to learn: how to dodge everything at once. Look at the star attack and just tell me, how do you dodge it? By abusing hitboxes, that's how. This boss really likes to teach you that everything you knew was a lie. Like, yeah, the reason you went through that bullet is because you're actually like 10 times smaller than you look. My biggest complaint of this boss is how drawn out it feels. Like, it takes a couple minutes to beat Marisa, and that's a couple solid minutes of pain for me, since I need good ending footage for this run, and it's already taking me 30 minutes of my life. But finally, we get to Mima, the final boss. The accumulation of everything you learned up until this point. Kiting, dodging, small hitboxes, and hopefully nothing to do with suicide bullets. Why is Mima dropping 1-ups? Oh, okay. Never mind, I guess. Remember my Touhou 1 video where I said that bombs don't do damage to bosses if you don't have 0 lives left? Yeah, this boss is why they didn't let you do that. So that way you don't just spam bombs to get to the end. Like if Mima looks at you funny after the first phase and slam the X button just to be safe. Now, just how many bombs do you get from Mima? Well, assuming going into the fight that you aren't close to getting another life, have 2 lives and 3 bombs, and assuming you purposefully kill yourself before the next 1-up drops, and you have used every bomb before that, then you get 18 bombs for the final fight. Let me put that into perspective for you. If you're using defense, since bombs are different for each class and defense is the best, then you get roughly 6 seconds of invincibility, lots of damage, and you get to shoot doing even more damage. Now multiply that by 18. That's almost 2 minutes of invincibility and free damage. Why wouldn't you use this? So you aren't called stupid on the end screen? And the best part is that some of these attacks are just pitifully easy to dodge, to the point where it's not every attack that you need to bomb. Like, just look at this, I can stand and win. The final boss of this game is just trying not to waste your bombs on Marisa. It sort of sucks because when you look at some of these attacks you're expected to dodge, it's like, am I supposed to bomb into oblivion? Because if not, then what is this? And the worst part is that I have no idea how to fix this issue, other than by making the bomb invincibility time shorter, I guess. I guess you could also remove the 1-ups, but the boss is already hard enough as is. And you want to hear the real kicker? The stage before this boss is preparation for the boss. And it barely even counts, which means that 1/5 of the main stages don't even matter. This stage is just a victory lap after being Marisa, since it has a harder boss and stage. Overall, I'm pretty sure that even if someone's beaten this boss legitimately, it wasn't fun and required heavy RNG. Alright, well, what else is there to talk about? The stages in general. Sure. Stage 2 is the best. I like the atmosphere and music. The mini-boss also teaches you kiting. The enemies aren't really annoying, and I've already explained my Maria is the best. Stage 4 is pleasant to look at, but I don't like how you die super easily on this stage. Also, those turret enemies go on for way too long, and Marisa is an okay boss. Stage 1 is definitely middle of the road, not awful, but not very replayable in an arcade style game, which being the first stage is a pretty big issue. Stage 3 sort of sucks, but the boss has suicide bullets and the enemies are more annoying than anything else, and I generally feel like cramped here at all times. Also, the main boss stresses me out. And stage 5 doesn't exist, so I'll just put you here at the bottom. I never expected stage 5 to be beaten by sedimentary rocks. Look, now I know I've been complaining quite a bit there, but in reality, we have to remember that this game essentially just boils down to dodging bullets and shooting. It's a really simple game, and funnier is how it's a lot easier than I thought it would be. Okay, hear me out. The first 2 bosses are really easy. The stones have one stupid move that likely only happens once in the fight, and otherwise has really easy attack patterns. Marisa is the only hard boss, and stage 5 doesn't even exist. The only stage that even has a chance of killing you is stage 4, and that's if you're not even paying attention. Stage 1 through 3 are jokes, and stage 5 is nullified by bombs. That's why I have to say, if you're new to bullet hell games, play Deltarune and fight both Jevil and Spamton, but also play this game. It's not too difficult on the normal mode, it's short, and if you don't mind the questionable design decisions, then it might take you at most like 10 hours to complete. Welcome back to the nitpicking section. I don't know how to transition to this. It's been months and this episode has to get out, so I'm gonna be honest, I kinda don't care anymore. So, what's up with these stones in stage 2? Do they even mean anything? Why is Genshi, of all people, the second male character to ever be introduced into this series? What's the perspective of this game? Like, some things are seen overhead, like Reimu, but other things are shown like you're facing them, like the Meira. That especially doesn't make sense since Rika's tank is also seen overhead. Also a problem with Touhou 1, to be honest, but if I complain about things like that, then the nitpicking section would take way longer, and I have religious themes and motifs to analyze, damn it. Why does Reimu believe Marisa in the bad endings when she was literally the right-hand man of Mima? Speaking of which, why is Marisa the minion of Mima? Why do Rika and Meira never appear again? They seem like fun characters that would have been fun to keep around, especially with Rika's smart but egotistical nature. I'm making myself sad. Why were some of these songs never used? Was there just another stage planned? Because if so, Zun, take a breather. You made like 3 games in the span of 8 months. Why does movement get like no damage to work with if the speed doesn't help with dodging? Why can't I enter the extra stage if I just beat the game once? It would really help me make a normal review, but no, I gotta pull an IGN and be bad at video games and then complain that the game is too hard. Why do P and S power-ups still appear after I get max power? What's with the glass in stage 4? And on a similar note, why does Mika's fight happen in a colorful vortex? Also, in Mima's fight, why does she just charge right at you? Sure, it caught me off guard the first time, but after that, you just don't die to it. The invincible enemies in stage 3 are a pain and never should have happened. These sentries in stage 1 can kill you when they first spawn in without warning, and this is just Touhou 1 all over again. Why isn't there more bullet varieties? There's normal, missile, which is just a stronger bullet, and these shots that come out at max movement, and homing is the only one with actually different functionality. Why do bosses not have health bars? I don't have too much of a problem with this though, since I've played games that don't have boss bars often enough that it doesn't bother me. But in an arcade game, don't you think that would be a little beneficial? Why does Rika not just use a Sigma I tank to begin with and just deal with a flower tank instead? Why is Lunatic just the same mode as hard mode, but with enemies just dropping bullets like in the last game? And finally, what is the point of these magic stones? Wouldn't it be helpful to have a boss that actually had plot significance and a personality, or these guys like Yuga and Megan? I mean, I guess there are 5 of them. Look, I know I just got done stomping on this game, but in reality it's really good. The game looks and sounds pretty decent. And aside from a couple questionable design decisions and one straight-up game-breaking decision, it can be a fun little time. Even if the design isn't the best and the story sort of feels like a Mario game with extra sprinkles, it's a decent way to introduce yourself to bullet hells and Touhou in general. So for newcomers, I would say this. Start with this game. Yeah, I know Embodiment of the Scarlet Devil is better in just every conceivable way, and the PC 98 era just gets retconned anyway after that. However, this game is guaranteed to be simpler and teaches the basic elements of bullet hells without telling you to kill the whole sun. Plus, even though it is shorter overall, beating the game with a good ending could be seen as an entry point skill level before you get to the big boys in Touhou. It proves that you know how this game works and the general mechanics and techniques used have been at least somewhat mastered. Now what about
the experienced gamer?
You may ask yourself, wondering what some niche guy on the internet thinks about one really strange and niche game in an already niche series about those games. How did you find this? Well, to experienced players, and this goes without saying, expect some dumbed down characters, especially for Reimu. Her entire point is to be comedic relief. But also more importantly, go into settings, difficulty, and slam right until you get to Lunatic, because that might give you a whole hour compared to the 5 minutes you'll somehow manage to take playing any difficulty lower. I can imagine this game being really easy for your average Touhou player, is what I'm trying to say. You know the guy, right? The one who plays every game on Lunatic by default, except the ones from the PC 98 era, since they somehow forgot to count what numbers come before 6, unless they count the days until September 9th for some reason. Except for the ones that do know how to count to 6, but all they care about is Mima coming back. There's a lot of exceptions here. This game shares a lot of similarities in modern Touhou, probably because it's the same genre, with small hitbox especially being noticeable. I still recommend playing it since it's the first bullet hell Touhou, and it might be interesting to see how Zun's level and boss designs have changed. But if you don't care about any of that, then this is just another game to put under your belt. Unless you want to play the extra stage though, which is supposedly the hardest the series has to offer, which I guess would be enough of a reason for veterans to try it out. But overall, it's still a better start to the franchise and highly responsive to prayers.
Seriously, why do they even call Touhou SoEW the second one? Like, why do they even belong with the same franchise? It's not like the games have anything in common in that Touhou 1 was marketed together as Touhou 2. They were both released on the same day and announced alongside each other. Did Zun just want to expand the world? Because if he did, then why did he get rid of the story? It doesn't even add up. Also, don't even get me started on the game itself.
God, the game sucked. Wait, what was I talking about again? Sorry, I just want a side tangent about something. Great, now I'm forgetting what I was talking about. This early onset dementia is really starting to piss me off. I better get that checked out. Okay, let's see the script and get back on track. But overall, it's still a better start to the franchise than period. What? That's an odd typo. Did I forget to finish that thought? Yeah, whatever. This video's been in the works for like a couple months at this point. Come on, we gotta get this done and over with. So yeah, those are my final thoughts on Touhou 2. Good game overall, though. I don't think any of this game was all too remarkable. The game was fine, but at best it was really solid. Nothing makes it stand out because of that, though. But does it have more bullets than Dodonpachi? Huh. I guess Dodonpachi do what Touhou know. Yeah, this video was supposed to come out in like December, but guess who has 2 thumbs and procrastinated hard? Me. It was me. Like, the original plan for the series was to get to Touhou 6 on September 9th of 2022, you know, for Shirano Day and whatnot. But if I keep up the pace like this, then I'm probably going to get it done by Shirano Day of next year. Whoops. It's not like that many people really watch the series, I just do this for fun. Besides, if you're hearing this, then that just means that this is official now. So, yay! Woo! It's freaking cannons blaring everywhere, yay! I just hope that Touhou 3 treats me well, because this game can get discouraging to play at times. And for some reason, it took me like a month to make this script and 2 months to make this voice recordings. I don't know, I've been very on and off with the editing and creation of this video. I mean, technically, when you're hearing this, I haven't edited the video yet, but you get the point. It's probably due to the new style I decided to take with this video, with all those out there segments. But even without that, I did Touhou 1 during summer break, so I don't even know anymore. But until next time, see ya.